feelings of like they don't know why they are where they are and all that kind of stuff. And I would definitely like to help them address some of that as well. So besides yourself gaining knowledge, it would be helpful. And I think we need some batteries, do we, guys? Okay. So you could call this talk part of a Spirit Life series of talks that I'm going to give. And the first in the sessions, and I don't know if I'm going to cover the subject completely in this session or not, but the first of the session is what happens when you die. And then it'll be what happens after you've died, after a bit of time, and then it'll be what happens after you've done some progression and you get into the second sphere or the third sphere and so forth. Now, of course, for many of you, if you progress and work through your stuff as we've been talking about over the last couple of years, you'll actually find that what happens when you die is going to be very, very different to what's happened historically when people die. Right? Because of the soul condition of people on earth, if you raise your condition, and we'll talk about this in a minute, then of course what happens when you pass is going to be very, very different than what it could have been if you hadn't dealt with those groups of emotions. So what we want to do firstly is remember the basics, and that is, here's our soul. What's our soul full of? It's emotions, longings, but let's start using some other things it's full of. Beliefs, which are all emotional, right? So we have fears, they're all emotional. Sorry? Attachments, very good, yeah. Emotional attachments we have to other people, other things, our life, even like many of you are very attached to your car. You know the proof of that? You go to a car park and have someone key it along the side and you'll see how attached you are. Does that make sense? So there's attachments there, emotional attachments. Addictions, okay. Right, so we might be, imagine if you're addicted to alcohol or you're addicted to drugs. Now that's a physical addiction. What about emotional addictions? Let's say I'm addicted to controlling my children's life. That's an addiction too, right? They're all different addictions that we might have. I'll just get my mic. So they're all different addictions and they all have an effect when we pass. Now, we could keep going there, couldn't we? But let's label all of that one thing. Let's call it all soul condition. The truth about when you pass is all based on this one thing. And that is, my soul condition determines everything that will happen the moment of my passing. And it includes how you pass, actually. Your soul condition also controls that as well. It controls how you pass, when you pass, what happens when you're passing, and then what happens after you've passed. So it's everything, really, your soul condition. But you throughout your life have had many experiences, right? You've had many friends, haven't you? Some of which have come and some have gone, and some you've had new ones come along, and once you met me, you didn't have many new ones come. No, that's not true. You had a lot more new ones come along then, didn't you? A lot of different ones. And all of those things add to the experiences of your soul, don't they? Does that make sense? So you even have experiences that we could add in here, couldn't you? That is now in your soul. Now, obviously, the experiences that we have are very different depending on how long we live, where we live, and what kind of background and upbringing we've had, and all those kind of things all have a huge influence on our experiences, don't they? And they also, therefore, have a huge influence on our soul condition. Right? So the sum total of all of these things adding together creates the soul condition, and the soul condition generates our own death and what happens after we pass. Right? And when I say generates our own death, I mean that literally. It's our own soul condition that causes our own body to degenerate over a period of time that creates its own death, assuming that we don't have an accident. But if we have an accident, it's our soul condition that attracts those accidents. Everything to do with our soul condition attracts our life, including the process of our passing, if we could call it that. So rather than calling it what happens when you die, we're really referring there, aren't we, to the physical body dying. And that's not you dying. That's just the physical body going into a separated state. So let's go through, what we're going to do is just go through some of the things that happen to you physically when you die, and then what happens to you in terms of how your life, what is created in your life.